Hi, and welcome back to the Calmer Schools Network digital platform. We're really excited about today's topic, which will focus on psychological safety. This is not only relevant for children, but it's also super relevant for teams. As a leader in your school or influencer, you have the ability to really think about how psychological safety plays out in your environment. Essentially, it's important to understand how the brain works in order to maximize performance. First, we want to begin by just drawing attention to conscious discipline. They're a great professional learning company that does a lot of work around the three-part brain. So essentially, if we're going to create psychologically safe environments, we have to understand what opens the brain up for learning and maximize performance, and then what causes the brain to shut down. So every human needs belonging. That is a basic human need, and we all need to feel like we are safe and loved. And that comes from different aspects of our brain and regulating emotions in ways that are positive rather than in ways that cause us to get more frustrated at work and shut down. So, for example, when we walk in a room, into a meeting, or into a space with people we may not know very well, we're essentially asking, am I safe? It's the lower part of the brain here that's getting activated every time we show up to a new space. Now, if we're very comfortable with the people around us, we may not be asking this question when we walk in. But if there's been tension in the past, or if we feel like we're unsure of our place at the table or the willingness for the group to hear us or affirm us or believe in us, we're essentially activating this part of the brain. And the brain is asking, am I safe? And really, the only way to calm this part of the brain down is to provide safety, which is why we're going to talk about psychological safety, which is an emotional aspect of working with your teammates and with your colleagues so that performance can be maximized. The second part of the brain that's activated every time humans interact with one another, especially when we're uncomfortable with a particular set of humans, is, am I loved? And for children, this is a really important one, especially if they've experienced trauma. But for those of you that are unaware, about 70% of all children will experience a traumatic event by the time they are 16 years old. So students that experience trauma grow up to become adults that experience that same trauma or have that trauma experience, and they carry it into the workplace. So essentially, it's really outdated thinking to think that someone is walking into the workplace putting aside their personal self. Life just does not work that way, and the brain certainly doesn't work that way as well. So in this way, the brain is asking, am I loved? Especially if there's been a traumatic experience that the person has endured in the past. And connection is essential. The only way to make this part of the brain calm and feel open and ready for learning and maximize performance is through connection. So getting to know people, feeling safe and loved, cultivating a sense of belonging and psychological safety is absolutely essential. Now, when these two parts of the brain are naturally activated by walking into meetings and spaces that may not feel so comfortable, or being around people that maybe make us feel like we can't trust them or we're a little unsure, we need to really calm these parts of the brain down. That's why it's important to do this work, so that ultimately what happens is when the lower part of the brain and the middle part of the brain feel relaxed and then they feel safe, that person is then able to learn. And what's happening then is the prefrontal cortex is activated. This is where learning occurs. So this is true for children. This is true for adults, regardless of age, experience, backgrounds. We all want to be able to activate our prefrontal cortex to be able to do our best thinking, to solve challenges and problems as they arise. All of that comes from the prefrontal cortex. To be able to stay organized and focused, that comes from the prefrontal cortex. But it's hard to get there if we don't feel safe or loved. So this is a psychological safety assessment. This template will help you gather information about how employees view psychological safety. Depending on your role in the school, you may want to give this to your teammates. You may want to share it with just one colleague. You may want to take it yourself. But I would recommend making a copy, or your results will be sent to me, which is fine. I'm happy to look at your results and process them with you. But most people are going to want to click this button And then this will take them over to the psychological safety assessment. So again, click here. And then when you get into the assessment, just simply make a copy and then you can use it for yourself or share it with your team. What's nice about doing something like this is it allows you to look at 13 essential areas very quickly for psychological safety to determine where you may want to start in terms of making changes that are positive. Some ways that we can do this include promoting self-awareness. So utilizing some of the self-awareness and emotional awareness strategies that we've talked about in this platform. Definitely want to encourage you to do that. And you may also want to think about ways that you explain changes when changes come about in your organization or school.